I'm Linda Feaglers, Senior Editor of Ohio Magazine, along with our Art Director, Leslie Lake. And we are at the wonderful Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland with curator Meredith Rutledge-Borger, who's going to talk to us about this marvelous, marvelous exhibit, Rolling Stones, 50 Years of Satisfaction. Meredith, can you talk about this exhibit? Because I know it's quite an undertaking and there's so much to see, and it took quite a while to kind of get it together.
Right, well, it's been years in the making, you know, and 50 years, to cover 50 years is quite an undertaking. We wanted to do a Rolling Stones retrospective for a long time. The Stones have always had a presence here in the museum.
Absolutely.
But to cover their entire career certainly would take more than the space that we have in their dedicated exhibit in the main exhibit hall. So last year seemed like a good target because 1962 is when the Stones came together. But the band really feels that they weren't a band until Charlie Watts joined in 1963. So this is really the 50th anniversary this year. So we were able to reach out to the band, and even though they were so occupied with putting together their world tour, they gave us time and were so generous with their artifacts and their memories, and we're just so excited to be able to put this together.
And of course that time, because the Beatles were also on the scene and the Rolling Stones, you know, it's always Beatles versus Stones, and we all have our own ideas which is the best band. You've covered both of those bands beautifully, but it was such an exciting time in music, and to think that this is still going strong today with fans of the Rolling Stones.
Well, you know, it was just an exciting time in our culture. It wasn't just music, art and fashion all came together in London at the time that the Rolling Stones were just putting out the most important music of the decade. And Mick Jagger talks, in the exhibit actually, talks about how all those different artistic worlds came together and met and sort of played off each other, and were all incorporated into the Stones' music.
Gosh, now talk about 50 years worth of wonderful artifacts. Tell me how it all came together for you and what some of your favorites are.
Oh, well, there's so many really fabulous things that have never been seen before. We did take some items from our Stones exhibit just because they were so important to the story. But some of the new things that we have are just so cool. We've got a plate that came from the Station Hotel, which is where the Rolling Stones had their first regular gig at the Crawdaddy Club in Richmond.
A plate, that's great.
Well, they all lived, well, not all of them. Mick, Keith, and Brian lived in this apartment that was a nightmare, apparently. It was, you know, like three 18-year-old boys, first
Not
time.
handy with the dust cloth, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. And this plate that they pilfered from the hotel, I think that was probably the only plate that they had in that apartment. And they left it there when they moved out, and that's why we've got it.
It's amazing too that somebody thought to save that plate when they moved out.
That's right. We've got a wonderful letter from a lady who just called out of the blue. She had heard that we were doing a Rolling Stones exhibit. She grew up in Garfield Heights, was a huge fan of the Rolling Stones.
Ohio, I imagine, yes.
Yeah, and she sent a fan letter to Keith. She said it was pages and pages long, and she asked him a lot of questions, and she gave up hearing from them, and about a year later she got this little note back from Keith that said, "Oh, thank you so much for writing. Sorry you didn't write back sooner. No, I don't have any brothers and sisters. Have to run now. Bye."
What a treasure.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that she reached out, because it's great to have, you know, something from somebody local that has that connection to the Rolling Stones.
Absolutely. What would you say are your wonderful things that you love in this exhibit? A couple of favorites. You have some of the clothing items that you mentioned. There was that sweater that we both kind of had an eye on top of the house. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, Keith has always had a reputation for wearing ladies' clothes, so it's no shame for us to be lusting after this sweater, because it's beautiful. It's black and has applique vines around the collar. Really sort of delicate, but on Keith, you know, it doesn't look girly at all. It's a beautiful thing. a lot of Keith's clothes are very cool. We've got this sweater that has chainmail sleeves. They're actual metal, and his guitar playing arm has completely ripped.
Oh, sure, okay.
Just because he's such a
Through
dynamic
the metal. Oh, wow.
and aggressive player. We've got this funny mariachi shirt that is Charlie Watts. And we think of Charlie as being sort of stone-faced and kind of serious. And to imagine him in this like poofy shirt with ruffles playing the drums, he said it wasn't possible to play in because it was just too unwieldy. But he soldiered on and wore that. Mick Jagger's cape from the 1981 tour that's made out of flags. It's an American flag on one side and a Union Jack on the other.
Great design.
Oh yeah. And he would wear that typically in the encore and twirl around. And before the era of the Jumbotron.
Yes.
This is when the Stones were, taking rock shows to the next level, and really needed to fill the stage. And a piece of clothing like that really did that.
There's so much to see here. Clearly, the Rock Hall is always a travel destination, but if you have not been here, you've got to come down this summer to see the Rolling Stones' 50 years of satisfaction.
That's
because
right.
it's more than satisfactory, that's for sure,
That's
looking at
right.
those artifacts.
That's right.
For more information on the exhibit, look at rockhall.org or call 216-781-ROCK. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank
Rock
you.
on, Meredith, and we'll see you down here at the Rock Hall this summer.